Well, it's that time of the year again, folks. Super Rugby Pacific kicks off this weekend, starting with a blockbuster clash in Christchurch, the Chiefs versus the perennial champions, the Crusaders. And joining me to discuss the prospects for this year's competition is former Marlborough and King Country loose forward Greg Brimble, all the way from the beautiful Nowra in New South Wales. How are you, Brims?
Yeah, going good, Johnny. Looking forward to some Super Rugby coming up. We've been sort of whetting our appetites, haven't we? Waiting for this weekend, and really looking forward to it because, quite frankly, the cricket over in India's been disappointing if you're an Australian fan. So bring on the rugby, I say. I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd imagine in this weather, or the weather we've got here in Queensland, those Jayco caravans will be running out the door down there in Nowra.
Yeah, they are, mate. There's still a thirst for them out there, and we've got a lot of inquiry and demand for them, mate. So yeah, it's been good despite some of the average weather and that we've got at the moment. People are still pretty keen to get to the great outdoors and on the roads. So I'm only too happy to help them make their dreams come true, mate.
Good stuff. Well, this big clash on Friday night in Christchurch at the I call it the Gazebo Stadium. It's just about that now. Thankfully, they're getting a flash new one built, which will be marvellous. But at the moment, we're down there in Addington, and hard to pick this one because both rosters outstanding. And I'm actually picking the Chiefs as the dark horse to win this year. And they're not that much of a dark horse either, looking at their playing roster.
Well, I agree with you too, Johnny, and I was just thinking over the last couple of days, I was thinking about the Blues and the Crusaders. I'm thinking who's gonna win it this year? It'll be bound to be one of them. Then I was looking through the Chiefs roster and they got strength right across the board there. They got a really solid tight five, an experienced tight five. They've got fantastic loose forward selection there, and some very, very capable backs. A return of Damien McKenzie from Japan. He's going to add strength. He's playing at first 5'8", despite my thinking his best position is at fullback, but he's at first 5'8", and Brad Weber back captaining the side as well, and he's proven to be a really good leader. So yeah, Chiefs are going to be strong this year, mate.
Yeah, a couple. You mentioned Damien McKenzie. I think he's the key to their going even better than they did last year because he just adds that extra, air of unpredictability, doesn't he? I don't think even he knows what he's going to do sometimes, but that can be as much as a strength as anything.
Well, exactly, mate. And I really think I don't look too far forward, but I really think he's the type of player we need in that All Black squad, and he's the type of player we need in that game day 23 because he's the impact player, and you can only imagine and dream of having the likes of Damien McKenzie and Beauden Barrett to be able to bring on at the 55-60 minute mark in these internationals, and they're capable of anything. But I do like to see Damien McKenzie with a bit more freedom. Playing as off the back there and coming into the back line and counter attacking. I think that's where his strengths are. But the Chiefs have got a very strong back line too, and they've had a bit of a shuffle round. They really have had to find room for Damien McKenzie because he's a terrific player. But so is Sean Stevenson, who's playing fullback on Saturday night and Friday night. And he's my little smoky for the World Cup this year. He had a fantastic season last year, Sean Stevenson, and if anybody is deserving of a run, it's him. So we'll see him playing fullback, and I think that's a really good decision. It means there's a bit of a shuffle, but Anton Leonard-Brown and Alex Nankerville, one of our favourite all-time players, are in the midfield. So yeah, look, it's going to be a really, really good contest down there at Orange Theory Stadium on Friday night, John.
Yeah, you mentioned Anton Leonard-Brown. He missed most of last season injured, and he'll make a hell of a difference. His combination, I think, with Alex Nankerville in midfield. Alex is a bit of an unheralded player, but to me, he's he's like a Conrad Smith. He's the glue that, he just doesn't make mistakes. He's a very consistently good player.
No, he is, mate, and that contest in the midfield between the Crusaders, Jack Goodhue and Braden Ennor, both All Blacks that haven't been in the first selection recently. Jack Goodhue back from injury, a long-term injury, and Braden Ennor apparently out of favour a little bit, but still a really good quality utility player as well. Their contest with Anton Leonard-Brown and Alex Nankerville is going to be one to watch, and it's a mouth-watering opportunities that's going to come from there. I'm really looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, well, at first five, Richie Mo'unga versus Damien McKenzie. How good's that? And I'm looking at the both playing rosters. You look at the Crusaders, a few names: Scott Barrett, Ethan Blackadder, George Bower, Cullen Grace, Joe Moody, Sam Whitelock, Fletcher Newell, Cody Taylor. Sam Whitelock's injured this week, but I'll be really interested to see how Cullen Grace goes, because he's my shot for the All Blacks this year. I think he's outstanding.
Well, very good line-out option too, Cullen Grace, isn't he, Johnny? Now, this is the other intriguing battle we're going to witness on Friday night, is the battle between the loose forwards. And of the 6 loose forwards starting this game, 5 of them are All Blacks that have been in and out of favour. And with the Chiefs, they're playing Luke Jacobson at number 8, with Sam Cane on the open side, but which puts Peter Gusto-Akula into the blindside number 6 position, and they're up against that terrific groundhog workhorse in Tom Christie, the number 7 open side flanker for the Crusaders, and up against Cullen Grace, who's playing number 8, and Ethan Blackadder, of course, back from injury all of last season. And it'll be really interesting to see how Ethan goes, because we know what a great player he can be, and a good ball carrier, and really sets the tone with his work ethic. So that loose forward battle is intriguing, mate. That could be the difference between the two sides.
Yeah, could well be some terrific players there. And of course, Willie Hines, who got to play for England, he's back in Canterbury and he's on the bench. What a boost he must be for the team with all his experience and skill.
Well, he's a good player to bring on, isn't he? With 20 minutes to go, with that sort of experience, and when at a time of the game when you're bringing a few new players on as well, and things start to get a little bit sort of higgledy-piggledy and it gets a bit loose and that, and having someone like Willie Hines there just to settle the mood, and just relax that team and lead by example, and just keep it nice and constant. I think his leadership is that's a really good selection for the Crusaders. I think he's going to bring a lot to that team, albeit it's probably going to be in more of a replacement role.
Brims, would you expect to see a bit more of an edge, well, quite a bit more of an edge to this year's competition with the World Cup here upon us, All Black selection on the line, and a lot of, I'm as confused as I was a year ago about who is going to be in the starting 15. So it's really open, isn't it, the selection?
Well, I don't reckon you'd be as confused as what Ian Foster is at the moment, because I tell you what, I feel sorry for Ian Foster.
Yeah, same.
In some ways, I mean, he hasn't, had a great history of results in the recent 2 seasons with the All Blacks, but just the way they've treated him, I think, is pretty poor, mate. But yes, to answer your question, I think if the opportunity of playing at a Rugby World Cup can't get your blood flowing and can't bring out the best in players, then nothing will, mate. So these guys are fighting for 32, 33 odd places in the World Cup squad to go to France, and they're not going to get much opportunity. So they need to start. Well, and there's probably a handful of players that are certain picks for the All Black squad. but there's a lot of confusion around what their makeup's going to be as well. There's, we've seen these loose forwards come back from injury and come into contention again. I mean, the availability of Ethan Blackadder, for example, is certainly going to mix things up a bit. Where do we play Ethan Blackadder? Is he an impact player? Do we try him at open side? Probably not. He's probably a blind side or a utility replacement. But yeah, there's the halfback makeup. I mean, who's going to be the halfbacks, the hookers? Who's going to be our number one hooker and our front row? I mean, there's some really good props going around at the moment. Who's going to make that up? There's going to be some really good players that are going to miss selection, so they're going to be wanting to hit their straps pretty early this season, and it should provide a nice edge for us couch potatoes sitting watching it at home, John.
Exactly. Well, the Hurricanes have got a good playing roster too, but they've got a really tricky opening game up in Townsville there against the Reds on Saturday. So that's going to be a hell of a challenge for them, and it's stinking hot over here in Queensland at the moment, and I'm in the south.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a test, won't it? Going from windy Wellington and the Cape Town up to far north Queensland, and anyway, we'll see how the Hurricanes go. There's been a lot of disruption as we know in New Zealand, particularly in the North Island recently, and obviously our thoughts are with all of those people that have been affected by Hurricane Gabriel up in the North Island. But they're going to have their work cut out. And I think, look, I just don't think the Hurricanes have got the strength and depth up front to be overly competitive this year. They've got some good loose forwards and some reasonable backs, some pretty handy backs actually. But I think their tight five makeup's that's where they're gonna struggle this year, I think, John.
They've got a number 8 with big raps on him. He played brilliantly during the NPC. Peter Lakai, Lakai, played number 8 mostly for Wellington. He's a real up-and-coming star. I'm not sure he'll break into the All Blacks this year, but he's certainly one to watch. And our veteran Owen Franks has recovered from injury and he's back for another go. So they'll have a good front row with Lomax, Tyrell Lomax. And
yeah, well, he's back. I think they're missing some depth in their second row for sure. You've still got Asafa Amua at hooker competing with Dane Coles for the hooker starting spot, but there's some good. I do like their loose forwards, Duplessis, Creefy, Reed Princep, and Artie Savia, along with very impressive Devon Flanders from the NPC last year. They've certainly got some capable players there, but I think they're going to struggle to win a lot of games. They'll be competitive against the Australian teams, but I don't think they will be against the likes of the Chiefs, the Crusaders and the Blues, mate.
There's a great battle in the Hurricanes, and it transfers to the All Blacks between the two hookers, veteran Dane Coles and Safo Amua, who by all accounts has turned up really fit and rearing to go this year. He's a dynamic player when he's on.
Well, he is, and he was in favour, wasn't he? And then he was out of favour, and then he's back. He's back in again, but we know that this is going to be Dane Coles' last crack at first class rugby in New Zealand. Don't know what he's going to do after that, but you've still got Cody Taylor and the unbelievably impressive Samasoni Takiaho as our number 1 and number 2 hookers, I believe. But there's 2 really good hookers coming through at the Crusaders as well, who could put pressure on these guys, and that's young Brodie McAllister and George Bell. So they're very capable players too, and there's some depth developing in that hooking role at the moment. So look, you've probably got to take Dane Coles to the World Cup, but because of his experience, but the pressure's certainly on.
And a great clash down under the roof in Dunedin. The Highlanders hosting the Blues. That'll be a cracker. Let's see, the Highlanders have got Jonah Nareki there, mercurial back. He's fit again, rearing to go, and Freddie Burns, the ex-England player at number 10. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, it's that's an interesting selection, Freddie Burns, isn't it? It's it's a bit like when they brought Danny Cipriano over from England to play for the Rebels, and that was a complete disaster. They put him in the same team as James O'Connor and Quade Cooper, which was always going, and Curtly Beale, that was always going to end in tears. But yeah, I mean, it probably just shows as well a lack of depth in that position down there, and I think everyone would agree that the Highlanders are probably going to struggle this year, and that's a shame. They got some good loose forwards, but they lack depth in their forward pack. They got Ethan de Groot there, of course, who will lead the way and will be going to France later this year, and Andrew Muckaleo is a favourite of mine. He is the ex-Tasman player, but they've got a couple of good young second rowers as well, and Fabian Holland, the Dutchman, aptly named Fabian Holland, and Will Tucker, and picked up Perry Parkinson as well in the second row. But they've got some good loosies. Hugh Renton, the Tasman Marco, he's in there. Shannon Frizzell and Marino Makaali Tuhu, along with the very impressive James Lynchies. But they're thin on the ground in the backs, John.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how Follow Fakatava goes at halfback. He's apparently recovered from his knee injury, and to me, he's almost a certainty for the All Blacks, I think, if he plays well, because he's a point of difference, and I hope he gets a good run at the Highlanders alongside Aaron Smith.
Well, I think they're resting Nuggie for the first couple of games, aren't they? Of Super Rugby, and that's going to give Folau Fakatava an opportunity to impress the selectors and stake his claim for what will probably for him be the third, possibly second halfback spot in the squad. But he needs to take this opportunity with both hands and really prove that he's up to it, because he sort of didn't last year, and I think there was a niggling injuries there as well. But on his day, he's a fantastic player and an exciting player, one to watch for the future.
Yeah, and of course over in Australia we've got the Western Force hosting the Rebels in Perth, and I see the late news Isaac Rodder, the Wallabies lock, has been ruled out of the Western Force with a broken bone in his foot, which is a disaster for the Force, because I think they're a team on the rise with very, very high ambitions.
Well, they are, and they've made public statements saying that they will be in the playoffs this year. They're guaranteeing their position in the playoffs. I'm really glad that the Western Force is back in the competition, because there's huge support for rugby on that Western Seaboard in Western Australia, as you know, because you've been there a lot, John. And there's a lot of Poms, there's a lot of Kiwis, and there's a lot of South Africans over there as well, and they all need their fix of rugby, and there's a lot of support for that Western Force team. So good to see them back. I think the Rebels are going to struggle, mate. They lack depth, and they lack star quality players. Although I did see during the week that Taniela Tupu, the Wallabies prop that plays for the Reds, is moving there next year, so that will give them some confidence that they can perhaps attract some other players as well, along with Taniela, to go there. But yeah, I think the Force up and coming. Melbourne Rebels, I wouldn't get too excited about at this stage.
And of course the blockbuster in Australia this weekend, the Waratahs v the Brumbies in Sydney. There's not much love lost there between those teams. That should be a cracking game.
No, well, they actually despise each other, those two sides, John, as you and I know. There's a lot of competition there for the traditionally it's been Waratahs players or fringe players of Waratahs that can't make the Waratahs team tend to go to the Brumbies. That's added a lot of strength, and it's sort of turned around the opposite way now. And if you can't make the Brumbies squad, you go and look and see if you can get a start with the Waratahs. But the Waratahs will be stronger this year. Coleman's done a really good job with that young team, and there's some young, exciting players in there as well. So that'll be a really good game. I'm picking the Brumbies. I think they'll be too strong, John.
The good thing over here too, Brims, is in Australia is Eddie Jones has got rugby back on the front page. He's brilliant for the game, I reckon. I mean, not only is he an outstanding coach, but there'll be just an extra edge because, you know, players who thought their chances were zero going into the competition now, they've all got a chance. It's an open playing field again.
Well, he's had a clean out, Eddie, isn't he? He's lost 3 assistant coaches in the last. He's got rid of Fisher. He's got rid of Dan McKellar, the very impressive ex-Brumbies coach who's going to Leicester, and Duplessis, who's the scrummaging coach. So all 3 of them have gone. They've been discarded. So Eddie's certainly stamping his own mark, and he wants his own people in there, and good on him. And I agree with you. I think that's been part of Eddie Jones's brief, is to put rugby back on the front page, or literally on the back page, which is the sports page of our publications here in Australia, because rugby in Australia has been its worst enemy. You know, RA Rugby Australia they've been the creator of their own demise. That they are reaping what they've sowed in previous years. So they're on a fix-it job, and I think Eddie Jones is the man for it. Sad to see Dave Reddy go, but he wasn't getting the results. I don't like the way they got rid of him, but I'm sort of on the Eddie Jones ticket at the moment. Good on him. I love him. He's you know, he mixes it up. He tells the truth. He doesn't take any rubbish from anyone. He certainly won't let player power get on top of him. So there's one boss, and that's Eddie, and good on him, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing what he can bring in, and getting rugby back at the forefront of the sports news. You know, you get the Wallabies play a Saturday Test match big against the Springboks, and you'll have the results from the Dapto Greyhounds on there before the bloody review of the Wallabies Test. You know, it's just disgraceful. But they've created those problems themselves. So yeah, bring it on, Eddie. I'm on Eddie's ticket.
Yeah, add a lot of spice to it, that's for sure. Of course, we've got the Women's Sky Super Rugby Picky competition kicking off this weekend too. We're going to do it real justice this season, Brims, and we've got former Blackfern Chelsea Semple on this week. We hope to have Chiefs Manawa coach Crystal Kawa on our program next week, so we're going to get it in depth. Just briefly, the game's on this weekend. This is the only time we're doing it briefly. Like I say, we're giving them in-depth coverage.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's Super Rugby our picky. There's 4 teams. There's the Blues, the Chiefs, Manawa, the Hurricanes, Poa, and Matatu, which is the South Island combination team, which takes on Canterbury, Otago, and the Tasman regions. And there are three rounds, 3 regular rounds, and 2 finals rounds. So 5 rounds all up, culminating in a grand final. So while it's not a big, long, lengthy competition, there's going to be some real quality in there, and I'm going to make sure I watch all of those games, John, and you know, good on them as well for getting behind it. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think this will be the last time there's only that many games. I think there's a huge surge coming in the women's game, which is wonderful. Just the games on this weekend: the Hurricanes Poa versus defending champions the Chief Manawa at Levin on Saturday, and Matutu, the South Island team, versus the Blues at Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin. So good luck to the ladies, and like you, I'll be tuned into all those matches as well.
Yeah, well, I think Chiefs Manawa. I'll be picking Chiefs Manawa for that game, and the South Island Matutu for the win against the Blues down at Forsyth Bar. So yeah, there's some really good games coming up, and the quality of rugby will be very high, and right on the back of that sky high interest in the game from the Black Ferns' victory in the World Cup last year as well. So this is only going to get stronger and stronger and bigger, John, and deservedly so. They've got all the players contracted now, so that's really good. There's 28 rookie players in Super Rugby, our picky this year as well. So the game's going from strength to strength, and yeah, good on them. It's about time women's rugby and women's sport in general. They were being recognised for the quality and what they bring to sport in general in New Zealand and globally.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Brims, always enjoy your expertise, and like you, very excited about the weekend's footy, the boys and the girls in action. So we'll catch up and talk in the near future and do some reviewing.
Well, John, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Super Rugby season. My wife's not looking forward to it, but she'll get over it. She knows where to find me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for having us on, John.
Cheers, Brims. Thank you.